Good evening, citizens and guests and council and staff. Ready to go, City Clerk?
Mayor Cernanek.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckman.
Present.
Councilmember Brinkman.
Here.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Stallman.
Here.
Councilmember Stein.
Here.
Councilmember Valdez.
Present.
If you could all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, there will be one additional item to the agenda for this evening in general business regarding appointment to the Urban Renewal Authority, the LIFT Board. Any other agenda items to consider? Seeing none, we will move ahead, looking for a motion on the minutes to be approved.
I have a motion. A motion to approve based on the clerk certification, the August 12th video recording as the minutes for the August 12th, 2014 study session.
Second.
Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Council, this evening we have no guest citizens, but we do have one scheduled public presentation. Pam Chadbourne.
My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live at Crestline in Nevada in downtown Littleton, and as anticipated, I need the projector. I asked for this time after last week's comments, and I want to thank many council members for being fairly frank and open, I would think, in their comments about citizens last time. So my first subtitle is, I'm troubled too, can't we all just get along? And my second subtitle is, we can do better, an alternative process for accomplishing urban renewal in Littleton to build consensus and improve our chances for success.
Pam, can you turn the light on the lamp?
It's Peggy.
It's about to go.
It's going to fall.
It's going to fall.
Grab the base. Grab the base.
Grab the base.
No, it's half on. There.
We're up here in our Three Stooges. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Mike, could you give her some assistance?
Yeah, if there's a better way, let me know. Thanks. So I want to give credit to my inspirations. Mayor Cernanek, you've always said bring positive suggestions. I try to. I realize sometimes maybe they don't sound positive, but I really do mean them in that sense. And also, though, you've said that we have to wait to evaluate urban renewal proposals until we have specific applications, and that's an inspiration in a way to say, no, we don't. We have to have models showing feasibility before these show up for their sake as well as ours. Councilmember Stein, troubled by citizen reactions. We're all troubled. So I'll make some comments about that. And Councilmember Beckman, I appreciate last time you spoke about your purposes as a council to address a budget threat to the city, and your belief, I believe, that we need retail to solve that. And I'll mention the feral cat if I have time. So I think, though, that we've got to use the riverfront urban renewal failure 30 years ago or so to avoid the same mistakes. I've never seen it talked about at LIFT or here or Planning Board or anywhere. And I want to bring a page of lessons learned from Tom Christopite. They're my interpretation of what he said. I've got an alternative way to go from here. If I have time, I'll talk about developer review of Littleton. What is it really? I don't think it's as negative as people are thinking, and how to fix it. And then some ideas about what City Council can do. And I can never commit to one thing, so my agenda number 2 is Council and city management are, for your consideration, selling Littleton short. There's a short-term solution to a single issue that I think council is working really hard to accomplish, and that causes the implementation of what is a long-term risky approach without considering approaches, or at least not that we, the public, have seen. And I am convinced that citizens, businesses, and the city's future will suffer. I believe that there is harm from the path that the city is on. I think there's a better way. I'll suggest it. And if in case I don't get to this, what I hope you're going to do is build your own confidence in Littleton. We're not in as bad straits as you think. We have more assets than you think. Please learn about that, share it with us, and use that to strengthen our position with people who want something from us for not enough value. Use our team, build trust, and learn to negotiate. I've got keywords: fun, happiness, reward, and satisfaction. We don't have much of that, or haven't been experienced much of that lately. And gratitude. Littleton is lucky in its legacy. There's also teamwork, collaboration, and cooperation, analysis, projections, models, and integration, and proof of concept and feasibility, which is what's lacking in our whole urban renewal process so far. And also risk management, risk assessment, and risk mitigation. Not there. And then, this is what I hope to see from you: more confidence in our city, our team, and our assets and our citizens. I want to see more concept of negotiation with people who want something from us for too low of a price. And creation and design, which are fun, in which we can accomplish. And we have the opportunity now, and not everybody does all the time. So let's use it. These are very positive, and they require effort. They require intention and will. They require collaboration and cooperation and balance. The balance is achieved after you've considered data and feelings. Actually, I can't put that up. I'll leave this and kind of say a comment that really struck a chord last time was furtively sneaking around. I just want to mention, voters approved last November a charter change that said that council members would have restricted reasons for executive sessions. The response seems to be that our city council has chosen to meet in twos with the city manager and daisy chain. There hasn't been an executive session since that. And I don't believe nothing's going on, and most people don't. I also want to acknowledge when I say you, I don't mean all of you. I think I'm aware that not everybody does this, but to me it's not what I expect from my city council. I never thought it would happen in Littleton. And so if there's furtive sneaking going around, it's not citizens wearing T-shirts on a parade day, walking around talking to fellow citizens. Transparency is vital in government, especially in municipal government where we know each other. Please show up here and talk about what you talk about in another form now. Share it with us. We are an asset to you and the city, I think. So please come back and be with us in public. And I'll say, to me, council does not look happy. It looks defensive with respect to citizens. It looks desperate. It looks like it's in crisis mode, and it's walled off from help. That's engaged citizens, boards and commissions, and staff. And it looks like it's influenced by people who want something from you, and I'm going to say the something that they want is all public. Whether it is public funding, or municipal funding advantages, or land use changes, or just land use adaptations. That's all public. So the MCACs are public, make the discussions public. And the thing is, if I think council looks uncertain in its confidence in Littleton and in the value that it places on Littleton assets, what do you suppose it looks like to people who want to take advantage of you, and they are out there? So please strengthen your resolve and confidence in us, in the city. We really are more valuable than I think we're being put out on the market for right now. So let me get my riverfront lessons learned out, and they're derived from Tom Christopite's April presentation. They're my conclusions, not his. The selection process under the request for proposal was weak. The risk management was, let's select Ryder because they're big and they can absorb loss. That's a poor rationale. And I'll just mention also that their low-income housing was displaced and there was no provision to replace it. That alone is pretty bad. Let the developer lead the way. Tom mentioned that over and over. And Tom did not question the design. Ryder built big, and it failed big. Marketing analysis was the weakness that Tom identified, and neither Ryder nor the Littleton Riverfront Authority did good marketing analysis. He said they didn't go deep enough. The city must perform independent analyses before the contract is signed. They got a second opinion from a Boulder design firm 4 months after signing the contract, and they said, that's not what we would do. We don't think that'll work. There's a trip to the Los Angeles farmers market after Riverfront was in trouble. No, do the investigation before the contract is signed. And then in response to a question, negotiations were undercut by the urban renewal plan. Once the UR plan was out there, he said rezonings were a slam dunk and everything else that followed. There were a couple things that looked good. They had enough of a plan to put out an RFP, and they hired a negotiator to make a deal with Ryder. And, I'm okay with quitting with this, even though we had trouble with the light. I think that, I wanted to get some of this stuff out there. We're all troubled. I think there's alternatives that we can do. Okay. I've got a timeline that I'll send, so I think we can adjust our process to do better from now on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
Okay. Now is time for unscheduled public appearances. Unscheduled public appearances are an opportunity for any citizen to express opinions or ask questions regarding city services, council policies, or other matters of community concern that are not part of the scheduled agenda. Generally, an immediate response should not be expected. Typically, issues are referred to city staff for follow-up information or research and reported back to the council and the individual that initiated the comment or inquiry. If any citizen would like to speak during unscheduled public appearances, please complete a green citizen card located at the table at the entrance to the council chambers and provide that green card to the city clerk or leave it at the podium. And first up this evening, we have Susan Neese.
Before my time starts, can I just make sure I know how to do this?
Okay. Doug, we need the projector.
To go this way or that way?
You read it towards you.
Okay, I'll put it down in just a second. Thank you. And also, I just want to say, sorry, I'm getting older, so I have to wear my glasses, and I can't have the eye contact that I'm used to having with people. So I miss that, and sorry about that.
Okay, and Susan, just state your name, please.
Sure. My name is Susan Neese. I'm a resident of Littleton, Colorado. I'm here tonight to follow up on the email I sent yesterday to the council with attachments of my August 23rd email letter to the LIFT Board and Executive Director Jim Reese's response by letter regarding my belief that the LIFT recommendations regarding the proposed Santa Fe urban renewal area boundaries and urban renewal plan that have proceeded by resolution to the Planning Board for approval and then will come before this body for approval include actions that are unlawful and illegal for this council to take. Specifically, the unlawful actions are the placement of approximately 125 acres of agricultural lands into the urban renewal area when the lands do not meet the requirements of CRS 3125-107 1C Roman numeral 3, which is in place from June 1st, 2010 until June 1st, 2020. Mr. Reese, in his letter, responded that these are not requirements, but rather an additional exception for agricultural lands, and that the agricultural lands only have to meet the conditions of one of the 5 exceptions listed under C Roman numeral 2 of the statute. I believe he is incorrect, and I am not alone in that opinion. On the well-esteemed downtown Denver law firm Otten Johnson's website, there is an article on limits imposed on Colorado urban renewal areas written by one of their land use attorneys. It states, for the next 10 years, agricultural land may only be included in a URA if, in addition to at least one of the 5 factors above, the following 2 factors are also met. The person owning such land on June 1st, 2010 also owned land within the URA that is contiguous to the agricultural land, and 2, such land is developed solely for the purpose of manufacturing operations. The article goes on to say, practically, this legislation completely eliminates the possibility of including agricultural land within an urban renewal area for at least 10 years and likely well beyond. In addition, nowhere can I find it mentioned in the condition survey or in the proposed urban renewal plan that are before the planning board and on their way to the council that there are agricultural lands in the area, their legal descriptions, or how they meet the conditions in order to be included in the urban renewal area as required by CRS 3125-107D. As I mentioned in my letter to the council and to Mr. Reese, there also seems to be a similar glaring omission regarding the required findings upon the inclusion of open lands pursuant to CRS 3125-107-5 and 6. Mr. Reese, in his letter, states that the, quote, authority has found the plan to be in compliance with these requirements. A finding of such will also be included in the council resolution. I am not aware of when or where these findings regarding the open lands were made by LIFT and would think they would have needed to be brought before the planning board before the plan reaches the council. Bottom line, council, I believe it's unlawful for LIFT, the city, and the council to proceed with placing the agricultural lands of the proposed Santa Fe urban renewal area into said area due to the requirements of CRS 3125-107-1C Roman numeral 3. In addition, I believe the proper findings regarding agricultural lands and open lands have not been made or included in the documents before the planning board or on their way to the council. At this point, based on what I have seen and heard, I question everything regarding how this process is proceeding. My question to you, council, is how will you proceed on these matters? Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Anyone else for unscheduled public appearances? Carol?
Carol Breezak, I live in the 4th District. This will be quick. I just sat through the interviews for to fill the vacancy on the LIFT board, and I think your selection is a good one, but I do have one question that I'd like to hear some discussion, and maybe a good time to talk about it would be tonight rather than when the problem arises. This gentleman has a lot of connections with the development community. That's a good thing. But if he's sitting on an urban renewal authority that's going to be doing a business with a lot of developers, how does he manage that conflict of interest? So I'd appreciate hearing some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda items for this evening. The consent agenda items can be adopted by simple motion. All ordinances must be read by title prior to a vote on the motion. Any consent agenda item may be removed at the request of a council member. Consent agenda item 6A is Resolution 76-2014. It's a resolution approving a police recruit training agreement with the City of Lakewood to use the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and Lakewood Police Department's combined regional academy for recruit police officer training. Item 6B is Ordinance 31-2014. It's an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement with Polo Reserve Metropolitan District for the land known as the Polo Reserve Practice Field. Item 6C is Ordinance 33-2014, which is an ordinance on first reading approving a cable television franchise agreement with CenturyLink. And item 6D is Ordinance 30-2014. It's an ordinance on first reading approving the rezoning of property known as 101 West Jameson Avenue from PD Planned Development District to PD-R Planned Development Residential District and approving the Jameson Village General Plan Development Plan. Looking for a motion for the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
Second.
Okay, Council, we have a motion.
I'll take it.
Yeah, Bruce.
Okay, and Council, we have we have a motion and a second on the floor. Council, ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay. And Council, we have no ordinances on second reading or public hearing. And we move to our general business item, and hopefully I can get this to open. There.
I have a motion.
Yes, please.
I move to appoint Justin Hay to the Board of Directors of the Littleton Riverfront Authority, doing business as Littleton Invests for Tomorrow, LIFT, to complete the unexpired term of Bill LaJoy.
Second.
Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Time for discussion. Okay. Any comments?
Well, I would just like to make a comment that we had some great applicants. We had some that were very familiar with the kinds of processes that they'd be dealing with on the board, and then we had others that didn't know so much about the processes, but had a very strong love for and interest and passion for Littleton and the direction that it's going in. So I believe they were complete and total types of candidates. It was really interesting to see that kind of passion and qualifications. But clearly, Justin was the person who, in this group, rose to the top.
Other comments or suggestions? And just to address otherwise, there was a question put before Justin, not for the whole council to hear, but in my conversation asking him whether he would accept is he aware of the conflict of interest laws that are present in Colorado, and he is. So we know that he has that background, and also in our discussion with him, he's familiar with the process as it exists in Colorado. Council, seeing no other comments, we're ready to vote on the motion.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Thank you, Council. And any consideration for authority, board, or commission matters? Seeing none, we move to comments and reports. City Manager.
None this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Stein?
No report.
Councilmember Brinkman?
No report.
Councilmember Valdez?
No report other than the museum, instead of having their meeting on Monday, will have it tomorrow night.
Okay.
Rescheduled to tomorrow night.
Thank you. Councilmember Stallman?
I do have a report, and I'm going to use the slide projector to present some information.
Oh, real good.
Since you guys all ceded me time.
Oh, no, that's not how
Can't
it
tell you how
works.
excited I am
Bruce.
all of a sudden.
Thank you, Doug.
It's always an interesting perspective. I've forgotten what this is like. As your urban renewal lift liaison, try to pay attention to issues that come up, and we talked at the last council meeting about a number of urban renewal related issues. In particular, we spent a lot of time talking about condemnation and the fact that the laws surrounding condemnation have changed, and then we passed the resolution to say the council won't pursue eminent domain or condemnation absent a friendly request to do so, to take that issue off the table. This week's issue that has come to light has to do with a communication or a concept out in the public arena wherein if we do urban renewal, it will be at the expense of Littleton Public Schools taxes. And so essentially I thought what we could do is maybe walk through some of the numbers quickly and get a sense of where the magnitude of money is coming from and how the potential application of incremental property taxes to LPS could come into play, and then have a quick conversation about how to take that issue off the table point forward as well. These are actual data points from the county assessment records, county website. I've got the citation, the websites up there. The actual taxable value for the city of Littleton for 2014 is about $4.7 billion. LPS's actual taxable property value in terms of the areas they touch is closer to $12.2 billion. Applying the assessment factors gets you down to assessed value of about $588 million and $1.3 billion respectively. And then the mill levies are indicated up there. You're well familiar with ours, which is 6.662 and hasn't changed since 1991. LPS currently stands at a shade under 57 mills. So how does that apply to a potential urban renewal project? Now, first of all, this is strictly property tax. I got a little asterisk wrote in off to the side that it excludes sales taxes. So let's say, for the sake of an argument, that we're looking at the Santa Fe urban renewal area and there's a mixed-use development with 75% commercial. The base for the Santa Fe urban renewal area, as indicated in the plans that we haven't seen yet, I'm guesstimating at about $75 million, and that's roughly 10% of the city of Littleton total taxable value. Say, for the sake of an argument, then, that the project that comes to fruition after all the studies and plans have been approved and a developer engaged and all the process completed appropriately is $17 million. 75% of that's $12,750,000, which is commercial. Residential's $4.25 million, and there's $3 million of infrastructure requirements to make the project happen. Again, this has to be proven by the developer, and it has to be a gap in the financing that's demonstrable that the LIFT board can determine is real and can be filled by making a tax increment financing investment, and that's why I've got gap fill up there. So the base, as it stands then, would be the assessed value using the factors from the prior page on the county's records. The assessed value for the city would be about $9.4 million for the base Santa Fe area. For LPS, it would be $8.2 million. And then the property tax only, not sales tax, just property tax revenue in the base coming from those assessments would be $62,000 for the city, $468,000 for LPS, from just those parcels using this assumption set. The new development assesses in at about 1.8, 1.9 million for the city, about 1.6 million for LPS, and we'd make the assumption that the city would contribute 100% of the property tax mill levy that we would theoretically collect to help pay for the LIFT infrastructure, the LIFT contribution, the $3 million gap fill as infrastructure. We would then, in all likelihood, go back and negotiate with LPS to determine what makes sense from the standpoint of mill levy that they would contribute to this project. And since this is predominantly a commercial mixed-use development, there'd be very little likelihood of any direct impact on their services from this particular project So I've made an assumption that we'd negotiate out at about 80%. That would, of course, be something we'd sit down with in good faith and work with them to try to understand and come to a mutual agreement on. If that's the case, then the $12,000 of tax, TIF property tax revenue that we would collect would be allocated, and then $75,000 of their property tax, LPS's property tax, would be allocated, meaning we have no net property tax for the city. LPS would still keep about $19,000, and then I've replicated the same thing on the residential side of the project. Again, it's 20% of the total, and so at the end of the day, the city of Littleton stays at $62,000 of property tax from this particular development, and theoretically, using the assumption set provided, LPS's base stays at $468, but the total take may go up to, call it, $493. This is switching it around now and assuming that the mixed-use development in Santa Fe plan area is 25% commercial, meaning 75% residential. Numbers are all the same as you get until you get down to, through the base, until you get down to roughly line number 51 on the sheet there. And what that basically means is, again, the city would dedicate 100% of the property tax to paying off the lift contribution gap fill infrastructure amount. But now we'd go back and negotiate with LPS, and basically by virtue of the fact that there could be there's a much larger residential component here, in all likelihood, their percentage contribution for something like this would go dramatically down because they need to keep the incremental property taxes from a residential project for use in providing school services. So I'm more or less assumed 15% here goes to these particular projects. 85% of it stays with LPS, and therefore you can see that the base, again, stays the same, $468,000, but they pick up an incremental $80,000 of property tax from the commercial piece, $27,000 from the residential piece. So visually, what you're left with is something that looks like this. As far as as far as the city is concerned, we've got one large blue circle there, which is basically the tax base that we get today, and there's no new incremental taxes from a commercial development that's, from a new development that's 75% commercial. The way this is lined out, assuming these were valid assumptions, and admittedly they are assumptions, but they're assumptions that are not beyond the realm of reason in terms of how these things come together. LPS keeps their base of $468,000, and they get a sliver of incremental tax revenue even after they've made a contribution to the tax increment of the project. And on the one that's predominantly residential, 25% commercial, you can see in theory they'd keep dramatically more of the incremental tax revenue because they need it to provide services for the schools. Now, those are the concepts. The numbers are subject to change, but in basically the idea that urban renewal is going to cost LPS tax revenue is not exactly correct, or more to the point, not a true statement in my opinion. What I wanted to do is a couple things. I want to ask the city manager what your thoughts are in terms of engaging LPS towards the directions that have been lined out here. And then if council is agreeable, I would be interested in having staff bring back a resolution to us wherein they work with LPS to make sure LPS has a seat at any table we're at in terms of these particular projects, and that we commit to negotiate with them to mutually agreeable terms as far as any urban renewal project TIF is concerned. And the intent here is, again, as with condemnation, let's take these issues off the table. If we have to do it one at a time, that's fine. But there's no good reason to have these kinds of externalities or extraneous issues out there frightening people when they don't have anything really to do with what we're trying to accomplish. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Council Member. So the issue actually is timely because I met with Scott Murphy last week, who's the superintendent for LPS, and we had virtually this exact same conversation. And my commitment to him was that essentially what Councilman Stallman just described, which is there would be certainly no net loss, as the council member indicated. The existing base continues. There's no change to that, and that there was plenty of opportunity to work with them and certainly have a seat at the table once we understood and had received a pro forma on what the financials look like, so that we can ensure that whatever type of development occurred, there was ample coverage of whatever increment needed to continue to go to LPS to address the issues. As he indicated, high-dense residential tends to have a much lower number of children in that versus higher density or lower density single-family homes. And so there's lots of examples where if you take properties that get developed with the commercial piece first, you might have 100% of the tax increment go into the debt service payment. If you have the residential, you might exclude it completely. I mean, all of that gets to what the pro forma and what the numbers look like. But our commitment from a staff perspective was we've been partners with LPS for decades. We're not, neither one of us are moving anywhere. So we're going to be partners long into the future. And yes, there may be some negative stories out in the Northeast where municipalities haven't worked well with their taxing neighbors. We're not in that same situation. So I wholeheartedly support the proposed resolution that Councilman Stallman has just put forward. And I think, unbeknownst to me, I'd already made that commitment to Scott Murphy at LPS. And I think having council restate that and support that motion is something that we absolutely can do. And the bottom line really is that until we have a project come forward and we understand what those pro formas are and what the impacts to the community are, because the same conversation is out there for the county and there's many other taxing districts. We're a taxing district. And so we'll have a conversation with the council about that. And so, all of these, we need to understand what are the impacts based on this development and how do we ensure that all of the taxing entities get the revenue they need to continue to provide the high level of service that each one of us is providing. This is not about taking from others. This is about growing together to make a larger whole and a larger pie cumulatively. So a very long-winded statement to say I support. Sorry, Councilman Valdez.
Okay.
Thank you.
Me too. What was that? Me too. Oh, yes. Anything else, Councilmember Stallman?
No, that'll do it.
Councilmember Cole?
I do have a follow-up question for that, if I may.
Question.
Sorry. Thank you, Bruce. If you could send those charts to us, so we can at least kind of take a good look
Certainly,
at
I'll get them from him and we'll get them out
The
to
other
you.
thing,
I had a typo. Let me clean it up, and I'll send it to you tomorrow. It's the same stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Professional.
Then on the assumptions, who's making the assumptions again?
That was my set of assumptions, just in a general sense, in terms of how this could look. I was trying to push numbers around, but if there are other assumptions people want to use, it's easy model to fix.
So, but it's your assumptions, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Phil,
cool, thanks.
Yep.
just a quick comment. Once again, just so disappointed that the message is being spread that we would actually go head-to-head and try to cheat, steal, and lie to our school district, of which, as the city manager stated, we've had a forever and ever and will forever and ever have a strong relationship. We are joined together in the success of our communities. And I 100% support this. And again, I think it's come down to just being a crying shame that we have to make motions to show what should just be a community understanding and respect that your elected leaders would not stick a knife in our school district's back.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole?
Just my regular comments?
Yes.
Okay, this is pretty minor, but I have a request in terms of our agenda. We used to have the A, B, C, D for consent agenda items labeled on our agenda and on the attachments.
They'll be back.
Good. I wasn't sure if this
I'm
was
working on it. I couldn't match them up with I'm working with Granicus to match up what's on the agenda with what's on the piece of paper for the item.
So I appreciate the challenge that you're facing. Thank you. I don't think I have anything else.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Beckman?
Nothing this evening.
And then just one item to add as a reminder to council that next Monday evening and Tuesday evening are our budget discussions going through the policy items. You've each received a significant binder with a supplement that Doug Farman provided us as well. So you have the binder and then the oversized sheets as well. And with that, thank you all for a good evening and have a great time.
7:09.